Hi, everybody. This is Ben Pruden from Salesforce Analytics Cloud, and we're really excited here today. We've got an awesome lineup of folks that are going to tell you about their experiences working with Analytics Cloud. We've got David Hunt, GE Power and Water Executive for Sales, Brian O'Rourke, PwC CRM Practice Director, myself, and then on my team here at Salesforce, Jason Huffman, who's part of our Advanced Services group. So without any further ado, I just want to kick it off, and we're going to be talking about how GE has been transforming their sales performance with Wave. So before we go farther, I want to make sure that everybody understands we may be addressing some future-oriented capabilities. Any purchasing decision that you make with Salesforce needs to be based on our current capabilities. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Brian O'Rourke from PwC. He's the director of the Salesforce practice there. He's been working with the Analytics Cloud for the last 9 months, getting all sorts of folks at PwC ramped up on our capabilities so that they can help accelerate our customers and their clients. So, Brian, I'll leave it to you.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Again, this is Brian O'Rourke. I'm excited to be here representing PwC, and I'm excited to share with everyone our perspective on the Analytics Cloud. As Ben mentioned, PwC has been involved with Salesforce for a while now on the launch of the Analytics Cloud as a pilot partner. So we've been spending time developing demos and prototypes, getting our resources trained up, and working with Salesforce.com and clients on implementations like the one you'll see today. So kind of moving forward to the next slide, the launch of the Analytics Cloud is really coming at an interesting time. Earlier this year, PwC launched our 17th annual CEO survey focused on U.S.-based CEOs. And each year, one of the questions we ask is, which global trends do you believe will transform your business the most over the next 5 years? In this year's results, technological advances was identified as the number one trend by the CEOs, and 86% of them identify it as a key trend that'll transform their business over the next 5 years. So technological advances, things like mobile capabilities, the expansion of different mobile devices and mobile technologies, sensors, socially enabled business processes, robotics, to name a few. Now, this was ahead of other trends such as demographic shifts and shifts in global economic power. So the fact that technological advances was the number one trend was not really that surprising to us. However, when the same CEOs were asked which technologies they were currently investing in to grow, 44% of the CEOs identified business analytics. This was the highest percentage of any other technology in the survey, ahead of things such as mobile, cloud, social, cybersecurity. So that was actually very surprising. And to play this out further, 62% of the CEOs said they're planning or considering a change to their current approach to the use and management of data and data analytics. Again, this was the highest percentage of any area where CEOs were considering a change. This was ahead of things like customer growth and retention strategies. So, overall, the survey also revealed that 90% of the CEOs said they were planning to or already making changes to their analytics strategy. So in other words, only 10% of the market was happy or satisfied with their current solution, which is pretty amazing. Just tells that the Analytics Cloud opportunity is huge and the timing is great. So moving on to the next slide. So most companies do see analytics as a big opportunity, as identified by the investments that CEOs are making that we just talked about. And most companies are planning to make a change. But as we've reported in another survey that we do called the Digital IQ Survey, companies definitely realize that there's challenges with kind of turning that data into insights. So in our IQ survey, 58% of the respondents admitted that data alone is not enough, and there has to be this transformation from data to insight. And obviously their current technologies are not meeting their needs. So this was kind of evidenced by some of the research we did on how executives are making big decisions. If you move forward to the next slide. we found that, given that there's so much data and analytics out there, you would figure that much more of the decisions would be based on these analytical researches and studies and tools. However, only 38% of the executives were relying on the analytics to inform their decision making. So there is a real gap there in the use of insights for decision making. So what they really need is data in the form of insights. They need insights they can trust, and they need it in time to inform their decision making. We kind of call this delivery of insights at the right time, intelligence at the moment. So decision makers around the organization need this intelligence at the moment. So when we're talking about sales, in the next slide, in the challenges that they face quarter over quarter, we can identify some use cases where we can use insights to drive decision-making and solve real business issues, such as sales managers supporting their reps during quarter and year-end to help them meet their quota. For example, enabling a sales manager or even a sales rep with the ability to see what products have shorter sales cycles. This might be important as you're nearing the end of the quarter. So shorter sales cycles across the region this quarter, or what products are gaining traction in the market this quarter. The ability to analyze coverage models that have worked best historically, typically like during a seasonal period, what works well, maybe like a back to school or a holiday period, or what comp models are driving the behavior we value and are game changers for the organization. So to wrap this part up, we do see a huge need for analytics to drive decision-making and real business value behind it, and we know that organizations are making the investment. So a really interesting time for Salesforce to enter this market, and we're obviously excited to be partnering with them on this journey. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Ben to talk more about how Salesforce.com is approaching this market with the Analytics Cloud.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brian. So here at Salesforce, we've really seen very similar trends and similar issues that Brian brought up when talking about the market for analytics today. So let's just kind of set the baseline of where we see the market. Well, first of all, in the last 2 years, 90% of the world's data has been captured. It's just been a tremendous increase in the amount, the volume, the type, and the structure of data that's available for businesses for analysis. We've seen that, and by 2018, it's projected that there's going to be a 10x increase of mobile data available for analysis, a 19x increase by 2020 of unstructured data, and well as a 50x increase in product data. So we're really just seeing a wave, an avalanche of data that's available for analysis. The issues that we're seeing, though, is that legacy BI and legacy technologies really can't keep up with the analysis that an organization may need to do. First of all, they're not very intuitive and they're difficult to use. They oftentimes can't handle different types of questions and different data structures in a single place. Oftentimes they're also on-premise and require a lot of heavyweight hardware, software implementation time just to get them up and running. In addition to that, they're not accessible. They're not available where you are, when you need to answer a question. You have to go on to a big terminal to run a series of queries and reports, pull those out into Excel, and then manipulate that data for a while and finally get your results, and maybe you put that into a PowerPoint slide to share it with your team. It's just really slow and kind of heavyweight process to actually get good analysis. And then in addition to all that, it's really not scalable. What we hear over and over again from companies is, we've got all these different Excel docs and PowerPoints that people have done using the different analysis tools that they have, and then actually those end up getting floating around the business in all sorts of different business units. And what ends up happening is one team has one number that they have from one report that was ran a week ago, and another team has a different number from a different report from 2 weeks ago, and they end up in a room arguing with each other over whether or not one number is right or the other number is right, and they don't actually talk about the business problem that they're trying to solve in that given context. So this traditional process of trying to ask and answer questions from data is slow, it's broken, and you really need a platform to deliver data and deliver insights to an organization that's governable and scalable. And so that's the context with which we entered the market here with Analytics Cloud. And we've come out with a revolutionary offering that we've been working on for the last 2 years that's really about delivering analytics for the rest of us. It's built for everyone, so anybody can find insights and take action on it. It's mobile first, so you can ask and answer questions from anywhere using any device. And it's a platform. It's able to ingest data from any source and any type and deliver that to all the right stakeholders and constituents that need to answer questions about their business. And we really took a new approach. The Wave platform is really pretty revolutionary. We started all the way at the infrastructure level at the data store that we use so that we can ingest not only current structured data like what you have in Salesforce or your ERP system or some of the traditional databases that you use, but also quickly match that up from unstructured data sources from maybe product logs or your website, and then quickly be able to transform and augment that, bring those data sets together. So even though you have two very different types of data, you can bring them together and analyze them right in one place. And then lastly, we've made that queryable and understandable directly on any device so that you can go in and ask and answer questions from anywhere and share that with your team. So that's just a high-level overview of what we're doing here with Analytics Cloud. Really excited about it. And without any further ado, I want to introduce David Hunt from GE Power and Water to talk about how they're using Analytics Cloud there today. So David, over to you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Let me echo a lot of the themes that were mentioned here. For us, if you want to jump to the next slide, just to give you an overview, GE Power and Water is a global $35 billion business sitting inside of the GE corporate structure. The division that I'm responsible for, the commercial side of, about $6 billion. We're a Fortune 500 company in of ourselves, sitting in a conglomerate. So the levels and the complexity of data that we have to deal with, multiple sources, and managing just a complex set of simultaneous inputs at any given time, really to drive productivity, to drive product knowledge, to drive the sales team into making targets, to make sure that we're integrating that with our purchasing decisions. So it really cuts across the entire end-to-end process from the time the customer contacts us until they retire that asset. Looking at our installed base that comes out of Oracle, understanding what may need to be happening with units being maintained over time, trying to tie live production data in from the control systems to forecast outage planning, make sure we have the right materials and parts, and really trying to drive towards a single source of truth of data, all in one place, so you're not arguing about this spreadsheet versus that spreadsheet. You cut out the time it takes to reconcile disparate, conflicting data with a single source of truth. The only way that works is if everybody can access it in a simple way, right? So that's what this was about for us. So what we had, incomplete, complex reporting, generally Office Suite driven, manual process, and then a lot of time, like I said, trying to reconcile that. So what we wanted was some accuracy, some detail, make sure we have the flexibility to customize the views for the end user. We've got production folks looking at it. We've got sales folks looking at it. We've got product line folks looking at it. And they all need to be able to jump in, see the data very quickly in a simple presentation. And with that, they can start trusting it and making decisions around it and spend more time thinking about the problems they're trying to solve, as opposed to spending their time trying to reconcile and get to the data that they're looking for. The other point I'd echo is the amount of data that's available to us today versus just 5 years ago. It's almost overwhelming. So if you don't have something that can synthesize and simplify that very quickly for the user, they just get locked up, right? So that's what we were looking for. Okay, so what were we trying to get to, right? We need any sales rep to be able to go in, manage their pipeline, grow their pipeline, look at the customer, look at their installed base, look at the opportunities they have, look at the complaints that they may have, any type of service call-outs. We need them to be able to access that from anywhere. We're our global business. Not everybody's tethered to the network, so definitely has to be cloud-based, but it also has to operate very quickly on mobile platforms. And one of the things we really saw with this product was the speed that you could get off a mobile device just dwarfed anything you could, even sitting inside the GE network on the mainframe, right? So really, to the point of getting it, literally at your fingertips, I really hadn't seen anything that had the response rate that I saw with this. And I think everyone's familiar with, you click a refresh on a report in Salesforce and you sit there for a couple of seconds, depending on how heavy it is. It can get fairly annoying. This is literally real time. And then the question is, how can I get in and look at the view from a number of different places, right? Make sure that we can get into it with views that are relevant to the individual functions that are using that sales data for downstream planning, for product planning, for competitive analysis and assessment. So when you look at it, you need to really cut the data in multiple different ways. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the overview, David.
Yep.
So we're going to switch gears here real quick and just actually show some of the use cases that you have today with the Analytics Cloud. And just to kick us off first on that front, we're going to pass it over to Jason Huffman with our Advanced Solutions group to share some of the initial work that he's done.
All right, so let me quickly share my desktop, and we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you. Hello, my name is Jason Huffman. I work for Salesforce in our Advanced Services group, and our charter is typically to enable customer success, and as part of that, we have the opportunity to collaborate with some good partners like PwC to make sure we are properly evangelizing the powerful Wave Analytics platform solution that's available. As you heard from Ben, the solution is designed for everyone. It includes a mobile reporting element, and it's all based on a powerful platform. And so I'm going to let Dave demo in a minute here, but I wanted to quickly introduce folks to the platform for those of us on the phone that aren't yet aware of the solution. The core of the technology resides in our data set, and this is a groundbreaking new way to store our data. We are allowed to rapidly persist complex real-world data, as you can see here, in a way that is still quickly queryable with end users through our interface. So we can take high volumes of data and answer sophisticated analysis questions that people are going to toss at our engine. Once you've loaded up your data sets, your users are allowed to quickly interact with the data, create queries that comprise views into your data set. So as you can see here, I'm easily pivoting on my data set and figuring out some interesting information that I want to look into for my data. Once I find an applicable lens and it's a view that's interesting to me, I'm allowed to go here and quickly persist that lens. It's a shareable asset that anyone at that point has access to. We're all probably familiar with dashboards. Our solution provides an easy way for you to compile your lenses together into interesting dashboards. Once they've been combined and integrated, they're instantly linked and actionable. So here I can quickly activate various filters, and those are easily applied across the elements that I pulled together. And what you also saw here is the applications that we're able to quickly build. First, you create your data sets, then you design your lenses, you pull those together into your dashboards, and you consolidate those into critical targeted applications. Those applications could then be shared to specific users, and you can empower them based on the specific business processes, the specific data needs that are required for their business use. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to David, and he can talk to us about the process of constructing this dashboard for GE and the insights that have been derived.
Yeah, hey, the first thing I'd say is when you start going down the path of implementation, one of the things you want with any new platform is to make sure you have somebody that is a good implementation partner. And one of the things we found with PwC, they were very good at, adapting their approach to the way we wanted to manage the effort. And the other thing I'd say is very agile in the implementation. Turn on a dime, and the speed was great. So as you're thinking about that, make sure that's one of the things that is on your list of issues that you're going to face. You don't start this stuff off out of the box with, a large group of people. There's a little bit of setup, but if you set it up right, then, from there it's great. So, look, I mean, the kinds of things we're typically dealing with, I think most people are. You've got a given date range that you're looking at, whether that's a quarter or a year. You're looking at that over a given geography. So if you, kind of look at this over 2014 and get a total year view. Right, so at any given point, I can go cut the numbers, and then if I wanted to, I could say, hey, what's my second half look like? And it's as simple as changing that date range to, from the 1st of January to the 6th, the 1st of July, and that, as fast as you can pick those, what you'll notice your entire data set sorts that quickly, right? So you can really start getting to the point where you can answer questions on the fly as you're having a conversation. That conversation typically in the past has been a list of data that you need to get so that you can go make decisions, where here the question is asked, the data set is there, and then you have a conversation about what the decision to be made is, right? So it takes away that lag time of going and mining the data set that you have and turns it into an instantaneous interactive tool. At any given time, I'm interested in looking at, how are things happening regionally, so I can drill into any of the regions. If you want to just grab a region, take a country, you can drill in and see exactly what's happening in that country over a given period of, over the same period of time, and then you can start manipulating the data. Probably best to pick something like the U.S. They're going to be a little more likely to have meaningful data than Afghanistan, where the opportunities are pretty thin, and it's best to duck. But the other piece that you're looking at is, what was my plan? Where am I at relative to my plan? What's closed? What's to go? So if you kind of zoom back out to the overall view and you look down below in that overview section, so if you just kind of go back out to and get to the whole world. So we say, hey, what was our roadmap or blueprint of what was this quarter supposed to look like? What was this year supposed to look like? Where am I at relative to that estimate, right? What am I committing to? And to make that estimate, how much do I have left to go? And I can slice and dice that by product line, by region, by P&L. So when you say, hey, what do I have left to go, one of the things you're constantly worried about is, there's deals that are at risk of slipping or falling out. So if you want, you can jump right into a lens, look at the risk, dig into the opportunities, and drill down to the opportunity that might be at risk. And then down below that, you'll see opportunities. If I do have some risk areas, what can I do to drill into those opportunities that have the ability to make up for those things that may slip out? So with this, just as fast as you're asking the question, you can see how those opportunities stack up, which ones are the most material, and then drill directly into that single opportunity and say, okay, what's the status of that? And you can do this right with the sales rep on the line, and you get real-time data based on, on-the-ground feedback of what's happening. But you know where to focus, right? You can look at the opportunities and say, there's 3 or 4 here I really care about. The rest probably aren't that material. But if I miss those, I'm at risk of missing the quarter. All right, so the kind of things we're looking for is not just how are we doing relative to plan, but where our opportunities come in the future. So if you drill back out to the beginning and you say, okay, what's 2015 look like? I've got a number of different production facilities that are located globally. Each of those have long lead items that we have to procure from suppliers to make sure that we're meeting that demand. We want to load those facilities as efficiently as possible. We want to make sure we're buying the right amount of material. So we need visibility. What's our future demand look like? So you can pick a time in the future. You can look at what products are moving the most. Where do you see demand coming? And it gets back to the Wayne Gretzky view of hockey. How was he great? He skated where the puck was going to be. So you got to know where things are moving to, not where they're at today. The discussion about today is a real-time, interesting discussion that we spend probably 88% of our time in, where 80% of the value is really looking down the road and saying, where do I need to be, right? So we can drill in and look at not just, okay, what's in gas turbines, but I can, with what's built for us, we can drill in and say what models of gas turbines and where they're going to be at, right? So if I have a long lead item that's a 50 hertz generator, I need to know, am I going to have 50 hertz opportunities or 60 hertz opportunities? So what country the demand is in is really going to impact my supply chain, really going to impact my facility loading curves, and it's going to, if the material's not there and you don't have the capacity to serve the customer, you may have production capacity, but without long lead material flowing into the front end, you just don't have the ability to meet that demand, right? So we're constantly trying to make sure we've got enough, but at the same time, the last thing you want to do is drag down your overall cash equation by carrying too much inventory. So it's that constant balance of where do I need it, when do I need it, what's it look like, what's the mix? And then when you take a step back and you say, okay, what are my most profitable lines? Where do I want to focus and spend my area and time? You can really start drilling into any of those opportunities, right? So those are the kind of things that we're using it for. I mean, again, it goes back to how am I taking my pipeline that I'm seeing from direct conversation with the customers? How am I using that to plan production capacity? How am I using that to plan changes in products that I see my win-loss rate moving relative to what my competitors are doing? How am I making sure that I've got the right resources? If I'm going to bring a distributor on in a country that takes some period of time, it's not something that happens overnight. So well in advance of seeing a demand step up, I've got to start not only making sure I've got production capacity, but that I've got readiness to serve. So if I see opportunities coming in a market that I'm not present in, either through a sales distribution channel or a direct sales force that is trained, you need to know that demand is coming well in advance, and looking at that analytics, tying it back to your history and using that feedback loop to close those decisions is really what this is about for us, right? We do have Salesforce beginning to be integrated directly into our ERP systems, so it's actually functioning as the front end of the ERP more and more over time. And then it's also functioning as the back end as we look at our installed base and do outage-based event forecasting based on real-time operating data. One of the things you've seen is our chairman very big on in the industrial internet and understanding how do we take data from operating units and use that to create value for our customers. There's a couple of different ways that can happen, but the first piece that you have to have is you're going to get tons of data once you start plugging into machines that are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a year, somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 hours a year in total, depending on your capacity. It's just mind-boggling the amount of data that you have to sort through. So having something with this kind of speed and ease to set up and filter through, this is just one example of, how do I communicate what my pipeline looks like. If I start taking that and tying it to my installed base and look at how those units are operating and how the customers are changing, as gas price changes, we see our gas turbine fleet operate very differently. All of a sudden that changes our future outlook on what our parts demand is going to be. So there's a lot of interactions between the global macroeconomics, and that's where you bring in, okay, not only do I need to see my fleet, but I need to see third-party data and projections of what's natural gas going to look like in the future and how is that going to change my forecast. So now we start getting into the need to merge not only the data we have in our ERP and not just the data that we have in Salesforce with that, but how do I start bringing outside data in that comes from, whether it's CERA forecasts or, U.S. government forecasts or, pick a data source that's out there. Platts, we all use them. But how do I take all those and integrate it into a single platform? And that's one of the things that's been sorely lacking in the analytics cloud, and I think that we've seen, a huge step forward with this product. So, I think I've given you a good flavor of the kinds of things we're worried about and the types of issues we're trying to deal with. Hopefully, as I've talked and kind of gone through some of the clips, you get a good sense. What I'd recommend, the best way to really get a feel for the power of the tool and the speed is you got to sit down and just and have a little bit of a dialogue with the folks that represent the product, and it's one of those things you really got to see it and touch it in a way that's relevant to you. So I'd recommend you take the time and do that investment. I think you'll get a pretty good sense of what we saw in the product and the capabilities in the future. that we have with using it to help grow our business and make sure we're making a lot better data-driven decisions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. That was a really great overview of how you're using Analytics Cloud today with your business at GE Power and Water. We've got a bunch of questions that have come through as we've been going through the webinar, so we're going to get to those in just a minute. And if anybody has any additional questions that they want to ask, if you just look at the top of your screen, there's going to be a questions button. You can tap that and type in the questions that you have, and we'll address that collectively here. So before we do that, though, I want to give Brian O'Rourke at PwC just a couple minutes to talk about their Wave Quick Start package.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. As I mentioned, we've been working with Salesforce for a while now on the launch of the Analytics Cloud, and we view this as a great opportunity to not only leverage the technology, but as an opportunity to bring our deep expertise in business analytics, information management, our customer practice, among others. For example, PwC has a world-class business analytics group. We've got over 5,300 professionals focused on things like investigative analytics, benchmarking, business intelligence, big data. Our information management group has deep and broad experience with leading ETL tools like Informatica and MuleSoft. So again, we see it as a great opportunity for us to leverage our cross-competency skills. And what we've been seeing is that most clients are really interested in the Analytics Cloud, but they're not really sure how to get started. So we're putting together a quick start program around analytics where we bring in our kind of cross-competency experts for somewhere between 3 and 5 days, depending on the complexity of the client, to help them develop an approach for how to best leverage the Wave, a vision for that, and a plan. So that's something we're approaching the market with, and we believe this will be a really interesting way to help our clients get their arms around the Analytics Cloud. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Ben.
All right, great. So we've got a bunch of questions that have come through, so I'm going to just take a few minutes to address some of those already. First, I'm going to start with some of the ones that came through first. There was one question that we had as, was this from the EdgeSpring acquisition? And the answer is yes. And the EdgeSpring technology was the underlying technology for Wave, the Salesforce Analytics Cloud. And that over the last year in time, we've been slowly and surely integrating that and bring that directly into Salesforce data centers and running it within our SuperPod architecture. And then another question is, who is the intended user of this reporting to, an analyst or a salesperson? So I guess I'll pass that over to Dave in terms of the dashboard that we showed today, and to talk to that, and then talk about where you want to go with it.
Yeah, look, here's what I'd say. And one of my first sales managers had a mantra that, a good salesperson is somebody that's a good business person. They're really interchangeable. So, as an analyst, a salesperson, or vice versa, you may have a role that is setting up or administering tools for the sales team. But at the end of the day, you're trying to make sure that you understand your customer at every level in the organization, from your frontline salesperson to your sales leadership to product leadership. So, to me, the administration may have roles where you have people that are crunching numbers and acting in a support role. The consumer of the data is the salesperson and the person in front of the customer, as well as those that are supporting them. I think the answer is both, and what you really got to do is make sure that when you do the implementation, you start with the customer and work backwards and say what's going to be most meaningful to creating value for the customer. That's going to be probably driven by what's most meaningful to the person that's serving them, which is your inside salesperson, and then you go from there. So, I think you got to look across the organization and say the way we do business is changing. It's data-driven, and everybody's got to be able to have some level of competency in setting up as well as managing decisions based on that. So I don't think it's a binary answer. I think it's pretty broad across the company.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Another question came through that I'm seeing a few times now is, how long did the Analytics Cloud and the Wave setup process take to get to see value?
Yeah, like I said, it comes down to your implementation partner knowing the tool. Give you an idea, the initial conversation, we probably spent 4 to 6 hours going through a business overview, another 2 hours going through objectives that we were looking to achieve. First POC was about a week later, and then, if you were to launch it in your production environment from there, I'd say you'd be up and running in under 30 days for sure, probably starting to see value within the first week.
Fantastic. Great. So there was another question that we had on how much volume of data that the Analytics Cloud can handle. And it really depends is the nuanced answer, but we easily support anywhere from 100 million to 250 million rows as of right now. And as we continue to improve the processing capability of our infrastructure and our engine that supports the queries, I'm sure we're going to see that go up significantly. So that's a quick answer to that question. There was a question here that are you able to save standard views that you view regularly? So I'm going to actually let Jason answer that real quick, talk about how that works.
Yeah, so typically the approach we use there is that the users are going to create lenses, and there's a couple different ways that you might enable your power users to create lenses that they're going to publish out to your end user population, or you could bundle those lenses in applications. And certain users, those applications could be purpose-built for sets of users and then distributed so that those are views that they're able to frequently access. And there are a number of approaches to how you could persist a view, and we will be evolving and improving it. But the current way that we're doing it is that we're storing the query into the data set. So as the data sets are updated, the result from the view will show you the latest data that you would like to look at, as well as if data has point-in-time information, historical information, you can query across the history of that information that is available. So
a couple more questions on data types are coming through here, and I'll let Jason, if you want to talk to these as well. So we got a question around, can it consume SQL cubes? What other sources of data can Wave, the Analytics Cloud, handle? Can it handle things like social media or Facebook directly, or does an intermediate tool need to be used? So could you just address some of those?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to load data and different types of data into our system. We want it to be as simple as possible, so the fundamental architecture only requires 2 types of data. It's either string data or it's numeric data, and longer term we will automate some of that. But today it's the 2 key types, and getting the data in the systems is pretty easy. We have a number of existing integration partners that already have solutions available, and so you can leverage their tools in order to read from the source and push it into our Analytics Cloud so the data would reside there. And fundamentally, we want the data with as many attributes as possible. Our technology is designed to accommodate and handle very effectively the duplication you're going to get when you essentially denormalize your data set. So we want the raw grain level data in our solution, and we want that to push through our interfaces. And of course, we want to make this easy. We want it for everyone. If it's some simple CSV or Excel type of data, the users can self-service upload that via our interface in the UI.
Great. Thank you. There was one other question here is, for the data that's not in Salesforce, do you have to physically move the data into the Wave platform, or can this be due to virtual tables and joins without having to move the data?
Yeah, so you would have to move the data into the Salesforce platform. As mentioned, there's a number of ways to make that process as easy as possible. But we are optimized. The way that we are able to serve up the queries so quickly requires us to optimize the data from the external format into the format of our data sets, and that does require the data to be pushed into the Wave Analytics Cloud platform.
Great. So a few more product questions that I'm seeing pop up here. So there's one around what browsers are currently supported. So we support, I believe it's IE 9 and above, Firefox, Safari, as well as Chrome. And yes, it is HTML5 compliant. Let's see. There's a question on, does the platform support localized data, i.e. customer names in Japanese? We're currently working on our localization strategy for the Analytics Cloud today. We are able to process data from that is multilingual. However, there are some localization limitations that we're currently working on right now. And then there's another question on, is the Wave functionality generally available to Salesforce customers today? Yes, the Wave Analytics Cloud is generally available today. All right, well, I think I'm getting through most of the questions that we've had here so far. We really want to be thankful for everybody for spending the time, and big thanks for Dave Hunt and Brian O'Rourke and Jason Huffin for spending the time here to talk everybody through how they're using the Analytics Cloud and what that means for GE Power and Water. So I think we're going to wrap up here. Really appreciate everybody that was able to come on today, and thank you for your time, and have a great day.